Corn and soybeans bouncing back this week of Thanksgiving. Jerry Giddell is ready to analyze anything in the world of commodities right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to give you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we had a 4-day week in the United States. So not much going on in America, but still a lot of things going on around the world. So first off, I think we can highlight that Mato Grosso has officially finished planting. What else is in the background that today we had both corn and soybeans bouncing back and soybeans pretty steady?
Well, it turns out that because of the U.S. world holiday for Thanksgiving, and that we didn't have any export activity, but we've had some announcements during the week here of some sales, and we had quite an impressive one today, over 800,000 tons, 840,000 tons, I should say, of soybean sales from the U.S. to unknown, which most likely is China, type situation. Which there's been a lot of talk that China was going to be buying all this stuff from South America and all this, and they were already covered on stuff along the way, and I'm not sure that's the case, but it's definitely we've had some very impressive U.S. export sales over the last few weeks, and again we had the same situation in this week's export sales, which are ended last Thursday. Uh, Along we had the 840,000. I don't want to forget we did have 152,000 sales of unknown beans unknown. So that suggests there's two buyers out there. That's probably not all China. It's probably some other country. Could be Philippines. Could be some other ones around the world. So let's get concentrated on today's export sales. Quite impressive performance here. 91.5 million. That's the highest number we've had since August of 22 of this year, just before our harvest began in the U.S. We had kind of a pickup in demand there, and there's been some shifts around. I think to get to that number this week, they actually did take some sales that they announced last week into it. But overall, still, we are 110 million ahead of a year ago on our sales at this point in the season. So that's definitely a good sign from there, and probably does encourage us that USDA could even maybe increase their export sales here in December. But the corn number, I think, is even more impressive. And that's part of the reason I think the reason the corn was up 4 or 5 cents today, and actually back towards the middle latter part, higher part of its range it's had over the last couple of weeks, when we ended up having a 42 million export sale, which is on the top side of it of expectations, and one of the higher ones we've had over the last month or two, and that we're 315 million ahead of a year ago. A pretty impressive set of numbers here. It really does suggest that Brazil's uh, corn production number for last year wasn't very strong. At least at this point, the Brazilians haven't jumped in here and made a lot of extra sales. The at this point. So there must be strong the utilizing that corn in South America for beef, and that could be the case. They could be playing uh, uh, utilizing their corn domestically and that along the way. And also, I think Argentina uh, and the issues they had in their leaf hopper has got that market particularly kind of confused as to what it wants to do going forward. But between the two of them here, both of them, both corn and soybeans weekly numbers were very strong in that. And while the U.S. wheat number is ahead of it last year by about 90 million, but still kind of plugging along here at 13.5 million. So that's part of the game here uh, going on in the U.S. is that uh, right now, at least, the one good thing that's happened here is that we've had this whole issue of dryness in the central U.S. Well, over the last month or 6 weeks, we've had some pretty decent rains, particularly in the eastern Corn Belt, and that was so the moisture coming in through the Ohio River Valley and down to New Orleans has picked up, and things are moving at a little better clip on that accordingly. So. Interestingly enough, that's probably a positive for us to try to get more exports that are on the books out of here and have less competition because until we get into the after the first year and probably in the February March period before we really get a lot of Brazilian beans available for the world markets at this point.
Yeah, and one of the issues that the market has kind of ignored, I guess, is the trade announcements. There were huge announcements. First, Donald Trump threatening both Mexico and Canada with tariffs, and Mexico and Canada saying they would fight back.
Yes, yeah. So that's part of the reason why we had some sluggish markets earlier this week before the holiday. Uh, it's interesting in the fact that he continues to, you know, put in well, particularly in Mexico's situation, he feels like that the Mexicans should be policing the border and taking care of all the drugs and illegals. Now, I'm not sure he can handle everything, but it's interesting in how his logic and how things that people should be doing uh, should be involved there. So definitely the Mexican lady that took the presidency down there uh, talked about that there has been a slowdown in that and all kind of stuff. Well, he was accusing her of not doing anything, and she felt, and rightly so. It's typical approach of Donald Trump in the past is to make a big to-do about something, and then he officially figures out how he wants to do it. So he kind of creates a problem and then turns around and he gets settled in. It's an issue. There's no doubt about it in illegal immigration and drugs, but I'm not sure that Mexico should be our defender of our borders here. The U.S. should be doing some of this themselves. So right now, at least, the 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 interesting twist on this thing is that uh, he enjoys taking and picking fights with people that really aren't against the U.S. by any means. But that being said, that definitely is going to be a factor in the first year of our new administration and how this is all going to get settled out along the way. So hopefully um, that. That cooler heads will prevail and that type of thing, particularly on the Mexico and Canadian side. I don't know the attitude about the Chinese situation and that everybody can always hate the uh, country that's furthest away from you because of so-called injustices in the world of trade. But interesting situation to say the least, and it's going to continue to be a flaring situation back and forth until we get more details and all that kind of stuff. It's right now, at least, though, we're 6 weeks or more away or from the standpoint of actually seeing what happens or doesn't happen. So from there, so that's definitely a factor that we're going to have to deal with as we go forward.
Yeah, so what do you think is going to happen next week? Do you think the market will still be following these trade disputes or trade announcements and yet the South American weather?
Oh, I think South American weather is going to be, of course, the whole trade scenario. right now, at least, I'm not sure that there'd be any more news that could happen on the trade things in the short term, just because he can't officially put anything, do anything specifically about it. He's talking about doing it right away in the first day of executive orders about putting these together, but that's still January 20th, not December 20th or even December 1st. So that's interesting in its own route. From there, the South American situation on weather, uh, it has been slightly improvement. I think there's still some issues in parts of Argentina, particularly in areas of La Pampas and things like that. But the major areas of South America in pretty good shape. Parts of Paraguay still need some additional moisture, I think, along the way. Interestingly enough, a couple different South American consultancies. The prominent agri consultant put their crop size up to 172 million metric tons. And the Sassafras Mercado late last week come out with 171 million metric tons. And that the U.S. is at 169 from there. So that'll be an important set of numbers when you look at December. Now, the one thing we're going to remember in the December USDA monthly update, it will only include international numbers, uh, and uh, and that they then they'll make adjustments in their supply demand numbers, which we could see some increases in our export numbers. But there will not be a production number this month on the U.S. corn and soybeans, sorghum, cotton, things like that. Won't see any production number changes. Well, I might be wrong about the cotton, but the other three for sure doesn't have any new production numbers until January. So we'll only be looking at ending carryover stock adjustments and world production numbers going in the month of December, which I think is going to be on the 12th.
All right. So we'll keep tracking everything and see what happens. I might consult with my Argentinian sources on why this soybean planting is so advanced compared to previous years.
Yes, that 32, 35 now, it's tied into how fast you were dealing with uh, excuse me, the winter wheat harvest progress. So maybe we're not getting our feelers right on how many progress we're getting on winter wheat down there, because it's a lot of their soybeans are what we call wheat beans in the U.S., but they still get some really good yields out of them. So that's a good utilization of what's going on. Um, as I said, good thoughts here that I think we just have to keep kind of moving along sideways and looking at what the world international uh, activity and trade news is all about. South America is going to be in all that, as we say. But US wise, we're kind of I suspect by the time we get to this time next week that the Mississippi River will be slowing down its transportation of things to the Gulf, and so that's always an slowdown period, even in the U.S. Trading activity is a lot of hedging and delivery situations in New Orleans kind of get culminated for the fall. So right now, though, we keep kind of stumbling along sideways. I kind of feel like that could continue, but it's highly important what's going on in the world.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
You bet.